There is a pattern that shows up quietly inside companies after they automate their customer communication. Everything looks fine on the surface. Messages go out on time. Response rates improve. The operations team is relieved. And then, a few months later, something breaks, not technically, but organizationally. A client received the wrong message at the wrong moment. A compliance flag gets raised. Someone asks who approved that message, and the answer is either unclear or it points to a system that no one is fully responsible for. That specific moment is what this video is about. What you're watching right now is an AI clone, a digital version of me, Ronald, the founder of Datawonder. We build AI automation and voice agent systems for real businesses, insurance companies, accounting firms, and medical clinics. Organizations where automation isn't a nice-to-have. It's a direct line to cost reduction and operational efficiency. I use AI every day. Not theoretically, I build it, deploy it, and then watch what happens when it lands inside an organization. That perspective is what drives this channel. If you care about understanding AI in a business context, not hype, not tutorials, just honest analysis, consider subscribing. This is the kind of content we publish consistently. When a business first automates its messaging, the immediate effect is visible and positive. Emails go out faster. Follow-up sequences run without manual effort. Customer notifications are consistent. The operations team gets time back. The sales team stops chasing manual tasks. On paper, the results are clear. But there is an assumption underneath all of that. A quiet assumption that very few people examine at the moment. The assumption is that automated messages are essentially the same as manual ones, just faster. That the accountability structure doesn't need to change because the communication didn't fundamentally change. That someone wrote the message once, someone approved it, and now it just runs. That assumption is wrong, and the longer it holds, the more expensive it becomes to correct. Here's what actually changes when messaging becomes automated. A message written for one moment in time gets sent across thousands of future moments the original author never anticipated. A follow-up sequence designed during a normal business period still runs during a crisis. A payment reminder built for standard accounts still fires at a client who just called in with a complaint. A nurture email written with one regulatory context still goes out after the regulation has changed. The content was approved once. The sending never stops. This is the structural shift that most organizations don't fully account for. With manual communication, every message is a decision. Someone makes a judgment call, consciously or not, every time they send. With automated communication, that judgment call gets made once, and then it runs indefinitely across every edge case that wasn't in the room when the decision was made. The accountability model doesn't change automatically just because the messaging does. In regulated industries, this creates a specific and measurable risk. An insurance company that automates policy renewal notifications has to answer at any given moment, not just what it sent, but why it sent it, who approved the logic, and whether that logic was reviewed after any relevant regulatory change. If the answer to any of those questions is, the system handles that, the company has a problem. Not a technical problem, an organizational one. If you find this kind of analysis useful, a like on the video helps more people find it. The deeper issue here is not the automation itself. Automation is not the problem. The problem is that organizations tend to treat content approval as a one-time event when they automate. A message gets written, reviewed, approved, and launched. And then the review cycle stops because the message is done. It becomes part of the infrastructure, invisible, assumed to be working, rarely revisited. This is where accountability drifts. Nobody is checking whether the message still reflects current policy. Nobody is reviewing whether the tone still matches where the client relationship is. Nobody owns the sequence end-to-end in the way that a human sender would have owned a manual email. The accountability that existed when the message was written has dispersed, spread across the marketing team that wrote it, the legal team that approved it, the operations team that launched it, and the technology platform that now sends it. None of them are fully responsible. All of them are partially responsible, which in practice means nobody is responsible. I see this specific dynamic with clients in accounting and medical practices, not just in insurance. Any business that handles sensitive client communication at volume and then automates that communication faces this at some point. Usually it becomes visible during a complaint investigation, a regulatory audit, or a sudden change in business conditions. Something happens, and the organization has to explain a message that went out automatically. And the internal conversation that follows about who owns that, who approved it, who was supposed to review it, reveals a gap that has existed for a long time. The second-order effect here is worth paying attention to. When accountability becomes diffuse, the response inside organizations is usually one of two things. Either they overcorrect, they pull back on automation, they add heavy approval workflows, they slow everything down to restore the feeling of control. Or they undercorrect, they acknowledge the gap, but don't structurally address it, and the same problem resurfaces 6 months later with a different message. Neither response is wrong, exactly, but both are reactions to a symptom. The underlying condition is that automated messaging needs a different accountability model than manual messaging, not a heavier one. What that looks like in practice is ownership that follows the system, not just the content. Someone or a defined team is accountable for the entire message lifecycle, not just the writing, not just the initial approval, but the ongoing behavior of automation, what conditions trigger it, what data it reads from, what it does when the data is incomplete, how it behaves at the edges that weren't considered when it was built. That is a different kind of responsibility than most communication teams have historically held. And it requires a different conversation at the leadership level, one about governance, not just efficiency. The businesses that handle this well are the ones that treat automation as infrastructure and treat infrastructure as something that needs ongoing ownership. Not passive, not set and forget. Active ownership of a system that communicates on behalf of the organization, at scale, continuously, without a human in the loop at the moment of sending. That ownership has to be assigned, explicitly, before the problem surfaces, not after. Because when it surfaces after, the question is no longer about accountability in the abstract. It's about a specific message that a specific client received at a specific moment. And the answer to who is responsible for this needs to be cleaner than the system sent it. The message is still yours, even when the system sends it. I'm curious where you've seen this play out in your own company or in companies you work with. When messaging goes automated, does the accountability structure change with it, or does it stay where it was and just quietly stop working? Leave a comment below. It's a question worth thinking through. If you'd like to explore how to deploy AI automation in your business in a way that's practical, secure, and organizationally sound, you can book a free call with me.